Hey golfers, Derek from ForeGolf Custom here. Today we're talking about Mizuno Pro Irons. This is the one you've been waiting for. We have information on the 221, the 223 and the 225 head, but we're going to kind of bow tie this into the fitting side of things. What's happening, what we're doing with it, how we're fitting it into customers, and obviously Dave's nuggets and insights into this product. It's one of those sort of clubs that we were excited to test because we really like the way Mizuno operates. So they have a really good, strong sense of design, but also it's the feel quality of the clubs. And to be fair, we were always concerned that would this feel, transfer into technology. We're going to talk about gapping as well today. We're going to talk about who the product is for, who Dave's fitting it into. So you need to stay watching. Dave, let's get straight down into it. This soft feel versus performance. Normally one cancels the other.
Certainly, yeah.
What are you seeing in this product when you were doing the fittings?
This is probably the best example I've seen so far, because the industry's ever improving on merging what is performance, which we tend to all want these days, with this kind of softness of feel. I guess softness of feel is always a personal thing, but in people who've traditionally had Mizunos and Titleist as a general rule, understand feel, workability, shot shaping, but in other products like TaylorMade P770s or something like that, so they tend to be an inserted golf club. So you've got a forged chassis, but then you've got a sprunged insert on the inside of it. It can change its feel characteristics. So Mizuno have merged kind of their chromology technology, which is a way of making the face very, very thin and very, very quick, into their forging process, which makes it very, very soft. So you have a face that is quick and solid without having to put an insert into the back of the face.
That's pretty cool. And design-wise, they've done a remarkable job on this. But I guess, so if you have feel on one side, so a soft forging iron, that creates nice soft feel. You can sense the ball in the face, usually good for working the ball, and it comes a little slower off the face. When you take that kind of a design and try to fuse the technology side of things, where you're getting speed off the face, you're getting, speed retention across the face, so the control of the miss. That's a hard thing to do, Dave.
Yeah, certainly.
But let's explain why we think that feel, that is so important. Why would you see that as being important?
Feel is traditionally something that they associate with low handicappers or people who played golf a long time, that they have a sense of feel. Feel for me is a way of connecting the club to the client and how they associate with it. So not necessarily that feels good or that feels bad, but more, well, I know where the head is, I know what's going on, I can feel the club through the swing. It just takes a bit of guesswork out and gives the brain an opportunity to process what's going on a little bit more effectively.
There's another golden nugget from Dave. I bet you never heard anyone talk about connecting the club to the golfer through feel. That's kind of one, right? Really like that. So Dave, then blending. So let's talk about blending real quick.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of emails and a lot of inquiries about, hey, can I blend, the 221 blade with, say, the 225 covered in cavity? What are your thoughts on blending with this range of three heads?
Blending is becoming a more and more complicated industry problem. And that it's stemming from the fact that each individual setup and each individual design is very, very specific to the model. So if you take 221, which is your purest blade in this Mizuno Pro range, and you go to 225, there's 4 degrees of loft variable between the 2.7 irons. But the bounce angles are being set against the prescribed loft angle. So then when you start to mess around with the loft, so you've got a steady flow of loft increments going up and down the set, then you start to mess around too much with the profile of the head. So I think blending is a good thing to do for forgiveness in long irons and short irons, but you have to be able to get the loft profiling set as correctly. So you've got 4 degrees between the 221 and the 225, and then you've got 2 degrees between the 223. So at some stage, you either have to make one half of the set strong or the other half of the set weak to get them to play with a consistent loft. Plus, they've all got relatively different pieces of technology in them. So the 225's hollow, the 223 has got a position of weight higher up in the face for lower flight, the 221's is the solid piece of forged metal. So they're all different technologies, all differing loft profiles. It just makes blending too complicated.
So there you have it, folks. If you're thinking about blending sets together, Dave's saying don't do it. If Dave says don't do it, stick a pin in it, think of something else. Basically, the technology between the different heads is probably set to within the set range, so you're better off to stick with the 3 models and move within those rather than try and blending 2 together. If you're new to the channel, you're really welcome. Just please subscribe to the channel. If you've been out searching for Mizuno irons or best irons for feel or whatever it might be you're searching for and you came upon us, subscribe to the channel. We've lots of info under the radar info about how fitting works with this product. So it's not necessarily about the technology and what it does, although it is part of the talk. It's more about from a fitting perspective, so you might want to keep an eye on our videos. If you have moved to these Mizunos from other products or even other Mizunos, are you noticing the same thing as we've seen with this feel and technology? Maybe stick it in the comments below. I'd really appreciate it. The more we share, the more we learn. Dave, so if we understand the feel, we understand that blending is not really going to be a great idea, then who is this product for? So if we break it down into the 3 heads, so let's start with the 221, the bladed head or traditional head. Who are you seeing moving into that head?
Traditionally over the years, it's been pros and elite amateur level because the bladed head is not very forgiving and it's not necessarily the quickest off the face in terms of performance. So that is with like the introduction of 223, which is blade visual with a cavity in the back of the head that you can't really see.
But 221 is really strong quality ball strikers.
Yeah, almost perfect ball striking to get anything out of it. So it's becoming more and more rare in the industry.
Gotcha.
Probably I see a stage at some point where they don't make them anymore.
Yeah, it's a possibility. There is still a few players that do like them and really like the way a blade, if that's what you want, what's the word you want, operates. So then 223, then where is that going in terms of player profile?
So again, try not to use the word handicap, but it'd be a single figure guy. It would be, it can certainly blend up into the teens from a handicap's perspective, but it's a fabulous example of visual versus performance versus, bring this word back in again, feel. So it's at that level, it kind of combines everything into a visual that looks like a blade in terms of the size of the head, and you can't see the techie bit in the back of it. So then it covers off all angles. So
then 225?
225, I guess, is looking for something sleek, looking something for visual, looking for quicker ball speeds, higher launch angles. So that kind of mid kind of handicapper in terms of 10s and 12s going upwards. From
there's a lot of confusion about that, isn't there, during the fittings when you produce that 225 that the golfers in general think they're not good enough.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can give it to a high handicapper as long as that they're looking for something that they can associate with feel. And if they can associate it with feel, it's a very, very forgiving head in a nice, pretty shape. So it's a real kind of way of merging bits and pieces together to give that kind of higher handicapper something he can use, but looks good and feels good too.
So then where does Mizuno fit then in terms of into a fitting session? So let's say scenario fitting session, where does Mizuno drop in your head so that you can, obviously when you're doing your fittings, where does this kind of slot into the session?
There's lots of different processes for fitting, but if you make it quite simple, you either get field fittings or you get technical fittings. Technical fittings where you're following the numbers and it's just purely about that outperforms that, where field fittings brings the player more into the process of understanding of, I can look at a TrackMan or the flight of the ball and go, well, we'll do this because that's the perfect flight. But if he then goes, well, I don't like the look of it, I don't like the feel of it, then where do you go from there? Because good golf clubs should last a long period of time, so you've got to almost love them to justify the change part of it. I think that's where Mizuno fits into my product kind of lineup, that it is technically good, performs well, good visual, but then you can bring an element of feel, which is essentially just, again, back to the connection between the golfer and the club and making sure that the two things can work as effectively together as they can.
So there you go. That's where connection or feel meets fitting. And you can see where Dave is talking about how he connects the club to the player. So this is the kind of product that if you're looking to connect with the club more, a better sense of the club face, a better sense of how it operates, this is a product to really consider. We've done other reviews of some Mizuno irons, which we'll tag in this video. But essentially, if you're thinking about changing, you want a performance and you want feel, no need for look any further. Mizuno is where it's at. Really appreciate you watching the video. If you've got any questions or you've got any comments in relation to Mizuno, or if you've moved to these Mizuno clubs really recently, why don't you stick it in the comments below? We'd love to hear your input. Once again, thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.